Everyone, we'll call the regular meeting of City Council for Monday, February 7th to order. Our first order of business this morning is a delegation. Ann Haycock and Bonnie Reedman have joined us this morning from the Peace Country Roots Group, and we're here to read a proclamation on behalf of Heritage Week. Whereas Heritage Week is celebrated in communities throughout BC every year, commencing on National Heritage Day, the third Monday in February. And whereas, in recognition of historic houses and neighborhoods, the theme for this year's Heritage Week celebration is altogether inclusive. Heritage is our legacy from the past, what we live with today, and what we pass on to future generations. Our cultural and natural heritage are irreplaceable sources of life and inspiration, our touchstone, our reference point, and our identity. And whereas neighborhoods and districts from earlier eras promote a layered sense of community history and contribute to visual appeal and variety, which enhances community attractiveness and livability. And whereas communities throughout BC mark Heritage Week to celebrate their unique history and heritage, now therefore I do hereby proclaim the week of February 21st to 27th, 2022 as Heritage Week in Dawson Creek. So thank you so much for coming this morning, ladies, and if you'd like to come up and we'll present the proclamation to you and we'll get a picture for you.
Yes, with our hair so
well,
today.
It's all what we do. There you go.
One more, please. Yeah. Great,
Thank you. If you'd like to say a few words, the floor is yours.
Well, I'm just saying I'm glad to be back. Unfortunately, our group is very small and everything, and I'm back in there as president. But they call you chair now, so that's okay. And so, but we're going to have a chance to have the day in the mall down at Co-op. In their mall, they call it a community kiosk. So I don't know exactly how much room they're giving us, but we'll be there on Saturday, which is the Heritage Day, the 26th, and we have all the books of the cemeteries. I know it sounds, but people love to do this thing, and family trees and whatever. So if you have a chance to come down or send it. So thank you so much for having us, because last year you didn't, so this is so
It's a
good.
change. We're moving forward, having a delegation back. So thank you for coming.
Yes,
Thank you.
so
And thank you
much.
for the work you're doing to the Peace Country Roots Group and
Thank you.
maintaining that heritage and that documenting our history is so important. So thank
It
you for the
is.
work you're doing and volunteering for our community.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. That's
Have a great
great.
week.
Yes,
Thank
you. Thank you. Whoops, wait a minute.
Sorry. Next item is late items. Is there anything we've received? No. New councillor business. Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. Oh, that's echoey today. Good morning. Just a question for staff. I had someone reach out from the community and inquire about the equipment tracking aspect of our webpage. With the snow last week, obviously people were curious about where the equipment was in proximity to their house, and they've pointed out that it's not working. I was just wondering if we could get some insight into why that is and if we can expect it to be back up anytime soon.
Through you, Your Worship, yes, there has been some challenges with the GPS. We are changing some GPS equipment in there, and at that point, it would be back up and operating. The challenge with this tracker, and I'm not sure the value to the public, with all due respect to the public on this, if we hire equipment, and we have in the last major snowfalls in order to clear it, they wouldn't see those pieces of equipment at all. So you may have somebody trying to monitor it, and all of a sudden a grader goes by and they go, well, this thing isn't working anyway. So I'm somewhat hesitant. I'm not sure of the benefit of that, but that might be a broader discussion for ourselves. The issue that we use it for certainly is safety, to ensure if we have a worker that's out there We need to know where the equipment is. Maybe we need to quickly access them to do something else. It always helps within the system. I will do some checking in once it's up and going to find out if any other jurisdictions run something like this for the public. But and possibly there's a benefit. Right now, I don't see that benefit at the present time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other new councillor business? Councillor Wilbur?
Thank you. A couple things. So kind of my other hat, but I just wanted to say that Albert has really enjoyed working with the city. We've got a great partnership. I look forward to seeing a bunch of new lifeguards and hope that they all put their resume in when they're done, because that would be exciting. We did actually have inquiries all the way from Fort Nelson regarding the lifeguard course. So I would be happy to see them move to Dawson Creek and then be a part of our team. But it is available from McLeod Lake to Fort Nelson. So please join if you're interested. The other thing I just wanted to touch on, not that my personal opinion is here nor there. I didn't ask to have one when I asked for this position. But I did want to thank the people outside for being respectful this morning. It was easy to come into the building. They are quietly protesting and having their rally for their freedom of choice. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I respect the fact that they did allow us to come into the building peacefully, at least for me. So I do want to acknowledge them. They're good, honest, hardworking people, and they may not agree with everything that's going on, but at least they're being respectful in the way that they're voicing their opinion. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other new councillor business? Thank you. So next item 5 is the minutes. And so we have the minutes of our regular meeting of council with the committee of the whole for January 24th for adoption. Move. Councillor Kemp, second. Councillor Wilbur. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, we got to vote. And it's carried. Sorry. Thank you. And any errors or, sorry, any business arising from the minutes for anybody? Sorry. Item 7.1 is correspondence, and we have an invoice from the Dawson Creek and District Chamber of Commerce for the 2022 annual membership fee. Councillor Wilbur?
Sure, I would move that we continue our membership with the Dawson Creek District Chamber of Commerce and that we pay the invoice in the amount of $787.50.
Thank you. Second? Councillor Kemp. And Councillor Dober, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. I know I raised this last year and this came up, and I respect the Chamber of Commerce and what they do for the business community, but I'm still just having a hard time understanding what they do for us. Like as they're here to represent the businesses of the community. Are we considered a business? And I'm just unsure why we would be a member, because we're already associated in a way, right? So we are technically members.
Yep.
Your Worship, I'm not sure I could give an answer from administrative point. This is a political decision based on yourselves to either be a member of this organization or not. I couldn't begin to, or I shouldn't, as your hired individual, begin to comment on this. This is solely a decision of yourselves based on what your feeling is. Whether you participate, whether you don't participate with the chamber, whether you see value and so on. That's, as I said, I'm in a difficult position if you're asking me to critique the value of the Chamber of Commerce in the city of Dawson Creek. This is strictly a decision for yourselves.
Thank you.
Yeah, I understand that for sure, and I guess where I'm coming from is that they are a good organization and they do a lot for businesses, but it is $750 of taxpayer money where I don't see the benefit to our city to be part of this. And then if we're talking about they're an organization, we're still going to support them. They're a big organization in our community, but there's a lot of other organizations in this community that we don't pay membership fees, like whether it be the the ski hill or, you know, other organizations that, you know, we don't pay. So I don't, you know, and I'm not sure, does anybody know like what other cities do? Like, is it
I-
normal?
I would assume, and I'm going to make that assumption, it's always a dangerous one to do, but I would assume as a municipality and a local government that the local government are supporting the Chamber of Commerce in their communities for the work that they do on behalf of the community, supporting their local businesses, and always on that foundation of small business is what builds your community. So Darcy, Councillor Dober, I would make that opinion and assumption that that's why municipalities do support them. And then it's based on number of employees is your membership fee, and because we're over 100, then that's why our fee is 750.
Okay. And then just in the budget, do we give them some money annually?
No, just
We
the
don't?
membership fee.
Just the membership
Yeah.
fee? Okay.
Councillor Wilbur.
Well, I was just gonna say that the membership fees collected by the Chamber of Commerce is the funding they use to support local business. So it's a way for us to support all business in the community and the work that the chamber does. So that's why I'm always in favor of supporting our membership and the dues.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor and voting. And it's carried. Councillor Javetkov and Councillor Dober opposed, and that'll be recorded. Thank you. Sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. Look like that's weird, that screen. Thank you. Sorry, Paul will correct that. No. 7.2, we have an email from Dr. T.L. Phelps Bonderoff, the chair and co-founder of Access BC campaign for free prescription contraception in BC. Councillor Parslow.
I move that we receive this for information.
Thank you. Second. Councillor Earl. All those in favor?
Voting?
And it's carried. Thank you. 7.3, we have a letter from Tanya Stedel, our city grant writer, regarding UBCM local government program services grant for emergency centers and training fund. Councillor Earl.
I will move the resolution requested as follows: that the City of Dawson Creek supports the grant application to the 2022 Emergency Operations Centers and Training Funding Stream for building emergency response capacity. Dawson Creek, further, that this project is to support the applied training and the purchase of equipment required to improve the emergency operations centers and enhance EOC capacity and communication, and will proceed only if the grant funding application of up to $25,000 is successful.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wilbur. Discussion? So the question, I guess, when we talk about building and the support of EOCs and training, do we ever look to the opportunity of partnering with the Peace River Regional District, who do their EOC operations usually here when they've had fires or floods or things that they deal, and they do set up their EOCs? And is there a synergy there for us to perhaps partner both in terms of facilities as well as that training? I guess through to administration.
Through you, your worship, we have had some preliminary discussions with their chief administrative officer at the regional district based on that. The concern is on a major emergency, they would be dealing with different issues than we in the city would be dealing with. So we have talked about it and are looking at trying to move forward, whether it be a centralized EOC, emergency operations center. Are there things we can share? So the discussions are in the very preliminary stages. If it is at all possible, I think it makes a great deal of sense where we could share resources. Is it being looked at? Yes, it is. Have we landed on anything? Not yet.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I guess when I saw this, I was thinking, we were looking at purchasing equipment or doing some staff training. And I know that through sitting at the board as a director at the RD that we build that same capacity. And so it just seems that synergy of us working together may be beneficial for all of us. So thanks, Blair.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. And just with respect to this topic, I assume, given that it's only going to proceed if the grant funding is successful, but once it is, it might be worth getting some sort of presentation from staff so we can all have a better appreciation for this particular topic and how that function is going to rest within the city. Given the last 2 years of wildfires and the flooding this year, it does look like the province and potentially the federal government are going to begin downloading more obligations and responsibilities onto municipalities in dealing with this, which might not necessarily be a bad thing if it comes with increased fundings and powers. But I think it would be worthwhile at some point in the not too distant future to have a conversation with a more knowledgeable person so we can all wrap our heads around what this might mean for us as a city and what we're going to have to do in response to it.
Thank you.
Your
Blair?
Worship, just, and that's an excellent point. We are working on that to bring it to council. We have an emergency operations coordinator in Chelsea Modishaw who is working on our emergency operations plans for the city of Dawson Creek. We are mandated under provincial legislation to take this on and do it. So your timing with your question is very relevant, as we had hoped in the near future to bring a full presentation to council based on the work that Chelsea has put together thus far.
Thank you. Further discussion? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. 7.4, we have a letter from Mr. Jabs, resident of Dawson Creek. Councillor Earl?
I move that we receive for information.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for Councillor Javetkov? I'll call the question. All those in favor, and I'm going to cut the voting. And opposed, it's carried. Thank you. Item 8 is reports, and we have report number 22008 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding the 2022 Financial Plan Draft 3 report. Councillor Parslow.
I'd like to move that report number 22-008 from the CFO, the 2022 Financial Plan Draft 3 report be received, further the revisions included within this report be approved.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dober. Discussion?
Just
Councillor Parslow?
yeah, a few points. So the Peace River Accord revenue is reported it went up nearly $750,000, and that now is 35% of our revenue. And 51% of that is being spent in capital, which now, so the majority of the money, so that's a good step forward. I know maybe this was embedded in the report. The $750,000 increase was, I assume, because didn't stand out for me when I read it, was applied to capital, was it?
Sorry, Terry.
Yeah, that is correct. The $778,000 was all applied to capital.
So I think that's where that's a nice milepost in a sense, in that we now have a majority of our funding applied to capital as we seek to shore up the standing of the financial situation here. But it did sort of get my attention as well. What a big slice of our revenue comes from this external source, 35%. So we just need to keep at the work we've been doing. So thank you for your report.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Your Worship, if I could just say a couple of words. This is, I think, a significant document, not that this year is different, but I want to go to what Councillor Parslow said. A lot of work has gone into this by yourselves over the last number of years to shift the PRA or fair share revenue over to the capital side. A lot of difficult decisions have been made over that time while still maintaining an incredible city that we live in. And I want to say thank you to yourselves for that work. And I want to say thank you to the senior staff and the team and all the employees who make this happen on our behalf. Sometimes we talk about budgets, it gets before us and we understand it, but for the public, this is a significant milestone where we crest the 50% of PRA revenue going into the capital budget, where we would like to see 70% of it. I think if we continue down the road of the work that's being done on behalf of the residents by mayor and council and the team at City Hall, we should be able to accomplish this before 2030 if that work continues. So I'm very optimistic, always have been, and thank you. That was the main reason for this. Thank you isn't something I think a lot of elected people are hearing these days for whatever reason in the world, but you've done a very good job and we thank you for that. So.
Thanks, Blair. Yes, thank you. So thank you to Terry, first of all, for stepping in the midway point of our budget process. And obviously, you look back in terms of how council has moved this and our administration in moving the budget process, where today we're the early February and our budget is basically in place. And normally we were moving that hard to get it done by the end of April as required by that first meeting in May. So I think we've done amazing to be able to get the process to a point where you can have that approval of your budget moving forward as we have by this time. And as was indicated by Blair, the work that council have done with regards to this strong financial future as the objective to get that Peace River Agreement money into capital and off of operations has been a ton of work. It's been really tough work, and congratulations to council and to our administration and to the staff for really hooking to that cart hard and working hard at accomplishing where we are today and moving that forward. So thank you to everybody for that initiative and that work that we've done to get us into a position that's much stronger than we were a couple of years ago. So thank you. Any further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? And it's carried. Thank you. Item 9, bylaws, is our fees and charges amendment bylaw number 4516 for consideration of adoption. Councillor Wilbur, second. Councillor Kempf, discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? And it's carried. Thank you. Now, item 10 is mayor's business, and I just have a couple of items I wanted to address. First, we've continued to have this follow-up meeting with our provincial representatives government in relation to the work that they're doing in regards to the Blueberry decision that was out last June, as well as with our Treaty 8 neighbors. And that work is ongoing. I'm hopeful and optimistic that we're going to see a resolve to that on behalf of our Treaty 8 neighbors shortly, and that we move back to a position where the work of resource development carries on in a way that helps to build our region and our community's economy. And so we have these regular meetings now, the mayors of Northeast BC, along with the provincial representatives, and they're just doing a very good job of keeping us informed and on the updates of that. I did a Notre Dame school have their Catholic school week, and so we took the opportunity to read a book for the kids at the Notre Dame school, and it's always fun to be able to participate and take the time to remember how important it is for our children and their education. I met with Connie last week in regards to the 100th anniversary of the Dawson Creek Exhibition Association. Obviously, big year this year for the exhibition and rodeo, 100 years, centennial fair that we're going to be as an agriculture fair. It's crazy when you think about that we're going to hit that milestone of 100 years. They are, and for on behalf of our community. And so had some conversation with Connie about some things that they're working away on for the initiative, and brought back some ideas, I think, for us as a community to maybe talk about in terms of how we could maybe do something significant in a way that recognizes that fair and exhibit 100th anniversary, and got some ideas about that. And I talked to Blair about it. We'll do a little bit of exploratory work and bring it back to council for some discussion and consideration in the next month. But obviously they got some really exciting stuff this year to make 100 a real special event that it deserves to be for our community and our region. And it is a regional event by absolute no question about it. Item 10.2, we have a letter from Brad Sperling, the chair of the Peace River Regional District, and it's a letter to the Minister of Health and Northern Health regarding the Dawson Creek and District Hospital Replacement Project. It was brought to our attention that the new hospital planning at the Dawson Creek and District Hospital, the acute care facility, was not going to include an intensive care unit, but a high acuity care unit. And so the board at the Peace River Regional District, because we fund 40% of all major capital projects on behalf of our region, felt it critically important that we have an intensive care unit for our residents of Northeast BC at that facility. And we've sent a letter through the board to the Ministry of Health and Northern Health asking that that consideration be put into the planning of the hospital. And I would like to propose a motion that the city of Dawson Creek also send a letter to the Ministry of Health and Northern Health explaining exactly the same, that we expect a intensive care unit to be included in the planning of that hospital. So I'm making that by way of a motion. And if I could have a seconder. Councillor Wilbur. Discussion, Councillor Parslow.
Well, I'm glad the letter was brought, obviously, to this council. It seems to be timely. And I thought the letter was a well-written letter, so I much appreciate that. I think COVID has shown that there's a scarcity of ICU units, probably throughout the province, but particularly in the north. So I think this is a well-founded request.
Thank you. Further, Councillor Javetkov.
So do we not have an ICU in the hospital now?
No, there's 4 ICU beds in Fort St. John and the new hospital there, and there is no ICU here.
So it's funny that they would plan a hospital without an ICU in this day and age. I couldn't believe it when I read the letter.
Yeah, I think the response, my understanding is that it's so difficult to recruit ICU nurses. And certainly a year and a half ago when the ICU unit or the ICU patients from this region were being sent to Prince George was as a result of they didn't have any ICU nurses in Fort St. John. They had 4 beds, but no nurse, 1 nurse out of what they needed for 9. And so I think that's my understanding is they just have such trouble recruiting ICU nurses that they were going to plan a high acuity care unit. I think you plan an ICU unit and let's all go to work and support the initiative of recruiting people into our region, but it should absolutely have ICU capacity at our hospital. Councillor Parslow.
Yeah, this relates to the overall issue that it's a national issue, the training of nurses. And I think it would be unwise planning for Northern Health not to have an ICU capacity here. And hopefully there'll be some attention paid to maybe training our people who are residents, long-time residents of this community, many who have returned to be nurses here, and give them the training and qualifications. My experience in the past is the community, as an educator, we have a lot of people here with all sorts of capacity. Distance from the major centers is a problem, but if the employer provides some support, they can adequately fill very specialized positions. And I do know for the operating theater, staff nurses did get training to be operating theatre nurses, and I can't see why it couldn't happen for ICU.
Thank you, I agree. Yeah. Thank you. Further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Sorry, there you go. And opposed? It's carried. Thank you for that, Council. Item 10.3 is I've been doing some support and work with the South Peace Health Services Society, and there's a grant available through Northern Development Initiative Trust, a community housing capacity building grant. And so we've got through the South Peaceful Regional District grant writer there that's put together the grant application. And one of the things we didn't see was a letter of support from the city. So I'm asking at this time if council would provide a letter of support for the development of this healthy, sustainable, and resilient communities throughout the South Peace region, and that the Bolter project is an important part of that, as we talked just now about recruiting people. So I'm making that by way of a motion, please. Have a seconder, Councillor Earl. Discussion? Councillor Parslow?
I remember we've talked about this in the past. And I just wondered if there's any point pursuing it again. And I may have the communities misidentified, but I know that Fort St. John, through BC Housing, was awarded money to provide for accommodation for patients who needed to be in attendance at the Fort St. John Hospital, or their family. And there were other northern communities. And I'm talking, this is about 2 years ago. I don't know if any other member of council recalls that, but I know that it was, and I just wondered, well, look, we're doing this here, which is exactly the same need. That's why we got support from, for instance, the Soto First Nation and other communities, so that people who were, and their families who were accessing health services at the hospital could have a place of residence close to. Well, that same function became available in Fort St. John through not Northern Health, but BC Housing. And I'm wondering, has that avenue been explored of them, if you like, fill in the gaps that are needed to be filled for the realization of this function?
I'm not aware of Fort St. John providing patient accommodation. I know that residents of Fort Nelson, the Northern Rockies, have been provided accommodation here through the society. District of Tumbler Ridge are putting money into this project because they see the value of it. So I'm not aware of other communities that are getting that support from BC Housing for patient accommodation. I'm not aware of that.
No, I heard about it on CBC News, and I think I did raise this at a previous council meeting, not for over a year, right? Yeah. And I haven't heard anything about it since, but it just struck me as being, wow, this community's done this, and this to support that need. And now we have other northern communities. It might have been Terrace, for instance, I'm not sure. And so if there's been some recognition at a higher level of government, why couldn't we get some help for the same cause here? Yeah. That was my thinking at the time.
Sure. I know that the regional district has been extremely supportive of the initiative in terms of the South Peace Health Society, and certainly through all of our regional district, I've been putting in $75,000 a year into the South Peace Health Services Society, and District of Tumbler Ridge, Soto, Doig River First Nations. Industry's been very supportive. So it's had a huge widespread support from all throughout the region of people seeing the benefit of having an accommodation for patients who are coming to Dawson Creek for their acute care, and really benefits the region far more than it does the residents of Dawson Creek, because we don't need that support, but it's really been that regional support for patients like that Ronald McDonald House. But I'm not aware, honestly, of other communities that have had, and I know that Northern Health spoke to the society when Shaylee was looking after it in terms of helping, trying to find initiatives in other communities that could model what they've done. So,
May I respectfully suggest that an inquiry be made about, this is a very strong recollection,
sure.
because, and all I'm suggesting is they maybe have some funds that they could fill in some gaps needed to complete this project.
Well, that's the initiative through NDIT, is to be able to get that funds to complete the project. But I'll follow it up for you for sure. Thank you. Further discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor? Sorry, Councillor Parslow.
No, sorry, it's my
okay.
fault. So
Voting.
ignore me.
There we go. And all those in favor, opposed, it's carried. Thank you. And so that, I have one other item under Mayor's business that I do want to raise, and it's not on the agenda. I apologize for that. But 2022 will be obviously this council's last year of our term, the existing term, and elections coming in October. And I personally have been given this a bunch of thought over the last bit of time. And so I do want to make a public announcement that I won't be seeking re-election this fall in October as the mayor. 9 years this year since I got elected in 2013, and it's been incredibly fulfilling and incredibly satisfying. And 99% of what we get to do has been amazing, to be able to represent your community and represent the community, and so many very, very cool initiatives. But we all have that shelf life. I think it's important that I communicate that intention now, because I think there's people who may be very interested in running for mayor, and it's important, I think, for people to know that whether the incumbent is running again, and then people can be prepared to make that move forward. And so I want to thank, honestly, I'm not leaving. I'm going to stay till October, and I'm going to complete the term, and I'm going to work hard. But honestly, I just am so appreciative of the support from all of the staff throughout the years, and Jim Shute and Shelley Wolf and Duncan and Blair now and Brenda and Shantae and Kevin and on and on and on, and the people who have been so supportive to me and working daily over these last 9 years, and now Terry, and I'm just so appreciative of it. And then councillors, and I was thinking about it over the weekend, the folks who have sat at the table here and supported me in that endeavor, being the mayor of Dawson Creek. So has absolutely, this is about me personally, has nothing to do with anything that's going on today as a result of rallies or the public, or this is an internalization for me. I'm going to be 67 years old this year in November, and that's a 4-year commitment. So you're 71 when you're done, and it's a good time to transition and allow a new perspective, a new vision, new passion at this chair, and that our community deserves that. And so I just felt it was important for me to communicate that today. And I want to thank administration. I want to thank council for all this time that I've had to be privileged. Thank you. Councillor Parslow.
Well, as a 78-year-old, it's been fun, and it will be fun for the next few months. And I think it's fair to say, I think I'm speaking for everybody, that your commitment to the community is 100%, and your work ethic is 100%, and your passion is 110%. And so I think we all appreciate your contribution and your zeal for the country, the region here as well. It's not just the city of Dawson Creek. And so I know we will continue to work together for the betterment of the community, and we wish you well in your retirement. It's going to come up in a few months' time. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you. CAO report. follow that.
Thank you. Wow. All right. Well, before I give a brief report, I too will say thank you, Your Worship, for the time you've put into our community. We go back to 1993 when we first sat on council. That is a long time and a long history, and anybody that serves in public office, whether it be yourself, the members of council, or previous members, do it because they believe they can help make the community a better place. And you have done that over your 9 years, and I say thank you on behalf of the administration and our staff, and on behalf of the residents of our community. I think it is fair to say that it is a challenging time, whether it's today or whether it was 9 years ago. Public office, you don't go in to get a pat on the back. You go in to bring your beliefs to help make a better community. And, you know, we're very fortunate to live in a city like Dawson Creek and the surrounding area. And the work you've done has made it a better place. So I thank you.
Thanks, Blair.
All right. I have very little to really speak to today on the issues. We did have a very significant snowfall last Thursday evening. It is rare. I've lived here my entire life. That was one of the larger overnight snowfalls we received. But I want to say thank you to the staff that got out there. We did bring in contractors this time. Our weather patterns have been somewhat different this year. To get a foot and a half of snow and then have it melt within a few short days creates challenges. There are those that say just let it melt. If we were to do that, there would be very little movement of vehicles through the community streets, including downtown, of which we got. So I want to say thank you to our staff who were out there, the contractors that responded to our calls. It doesn't matter what you do. There are still a few that want it done better, and we strive every day to do that. But we have some of the best snow clearing procedures of any northern community. I would challenge someone to find a better one. And we don't do it with just policy. We do it with our workers and the people that live here. So shout out to our workforce and the contractors that got our town cleaned up. And there's still some areas to go, but overall, it was very immediate, that response. So that is all I have for today in updates in the open meeting, Your Worship.
Good job. Thank you, Blair. Item 12 is diary, and nothing new to report under diary, under permissive tax exemption. Councillor Parslow?
I just have a question to staff about the permissive tax exemption review. What sort of materials can we anticipate receiving from you in preparation for this meeting?
Well, thank you. And through your question is very timely. I was going to raise it myself to ask what kind you would like, what you're looking for. We have dealt probably no less than on 5 reports with our previous chief financial officer on this, landed on some change, and there's a feeling we'd like to look at alternatives. There are a couple that jump to mind that we could bring. We could look at a set amount if council wanted just to have a budget set. Whether it be whatever that number is. If it was $150,000, then that budget is set, everybody applies, and that is the amount of money. So some may receive 100%, some may receive 50%. That will be a decision of the board to make those. We have one now where what we are operating under with the thresholds at 5,000 is going to be extremely challenging. Simply for the fact that we're working a year behind what the assessed values are and before we even know tax rates. So we're going to bring a couple of options forward, but I would very much look forward to hear from council today if they have anything they would like us to bring forward under that permissive tax review, and we would go to work on that as well. But it's going to be an interesting discussion.
Well, I would hope that you could assemble some material that is available from the Ministry of Finance around these different, like I didn't know until I looked at it last year that we could grant partial tax exemption, for instance. So I think the statutory possibilities and that option of entering into a different type of agreement with the golf course, because I'm not against supporting the golf course, but it just seems the permissive tax exemption for the golf course might better be handled by some other provisions that are mentioned in the literature. I think I'm just speaking now personally, and you have mentioned it. One of the issues I think we should discuss is the threshold, what they are, and so on, and what is actually considered. Again, a reminder of what is considered to be covered by the statutory exemption for places of worship, and how that is handled. I think that would be a good refresher for me. Again, just speaking personally, I have, as you know, brought forward the Fort St. John model, but I think we've dealt with that. So I'm not looking for a review of that. So that's just, these are my personal views, obviously.
Thank you. I'm not sure now, honestly, of having, I thought it was very, very positive, us doing the review last year on our permissive tax and having the organizations come and present to council. But perhaps now that we've had that opportunity to put that first cut in for our permissive tax, that it would be worthwhile for us. And now we have a new CFO who's now had the opportunity to look at it as well, that perhaps we set a special meeting for a couple hours to be able to have a complete review again of make sure we have that policy today of what our permissive tax is, and then some of the thoughts we have in terms of, because I don't think anybody was real clear and real good about some of that caps and some of the criteria. And maybe it'd be worthwhile for us to have that conversation as a council back to administration, and then we can start to put some of that work together for you guys so that you can be a little more focused about what it is that we think we want to see in that permissive tax policy now as changes that we've just implemented, and have that. And so maybe I would like to suggest that it would be worthwhile for us to have a 2-hour or 3-hour special meeting on our permissive tax exemption policy. We review what we have, get your feedback now in terms of say, okay, well, here's now some of the issues that we've identified even in that, so that we can provide some direction in terms of saying, here's some things I think we want to look at changing or considering having some information on. And then that way you guys are a little more focused in terms of bringing that information back that council would like to see as regards to that current change to our policy. Councillor Parslow?
Yes, I like that idea. So we've got dated here the permissive tax exemption policy review. Well, what you have said would be an important part, obviously, of the review. And why couldn't we schedule it as part of our, and give it the time it's due at the very end of our, what do we call that, committee of the whole meeting?
Sure.
And have the presentation at the end, so the staff sergeant and others are not kept waiting.
Sure. And like I say, to me, I think it's, we always talk about that, right? We don't ever get that opportunity to have just a couple hours conversation or whatever discussion as a council about this. And I think it's important enough now that we do that and be able to provide, because I really don't like the idea of us having administration going to work, bringing back some information to council that clearly isn't something that we're going to see as value, because it doesn't get to that point where we want to make some of those changes that we as council want to consider or have some information on. Councillor Javetkov?
So there's one area of permissive taxes that I was wondering about since the last time we talked about it, and that's the facilities that are provided by community living and spickers. And there's also the same type of facilities that are provided by private operators. And my understanding is that these opportunities, whether they're to house handicapped people or whatever, are all tendered by the provincial government. And these not-for-profit organizations have an opportunity to bid on them, as well as private industry. But the permissive taxes, we tend to provide the permissive tax exemption to the not-for-profit organizations, but not to the private operators. And I don't know, it'll take some research, but it seems to me that some of these facilities are actually, they are taxed and taxes are paid on them. So when they're tendered by the provincial government, I don't know, I assume that there is a provision there for the taxes to be considered, the property taxes. So I think that's an area that needs to be investigated, but your administration people would have more opportunity to investigate than me. So if we could get some information on that, it's just an area that seems to have some inconsistencies.
We'll certainly
Okay.
bring that back as well. So-
All right, so let's do that if we can. We'll put some time in at the next committee of the whole afterwards, and then we'll have just a general conversation about the policy, and we can bring back what we have, and Terry can give her input into it, and we'll bring that forward at the next meeting. Thank you. Consent calendar, and is there anything anybody would like to lift from that consent? Can I have a motion to accept the consent? Councillor Kemp, second. Councillor Wilbur. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. And strategic priorities, Blair?
Your worship, we have a discussion forthcoming based on the 22 strategic
Okay.
priorities. So I envision that being posted on the open meeting at the next council meeting.
Good, thank you. Media question. So now we have a motion to recess to closed. Agenda items 4.1 and 5.1 deal with section 90 minutes. Agenda item 8.1, section 91I for discussion with municipal officers and employees respecting objectives, measures, and progress. And agenda items 8.2, 8.3 are section 91C, labor relations or other employee relations. And we have one additional item under 91G, 3.1 and 7.1, as per section 91G of the community charter. So if I can have a motion, moved, Councillor Kemp, second. Councillor Wilbur, all those, oh, sorry. No voting? There we go. There's voting. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it's carried. Thank you. So we'll recess for 7 or 8 minutes and then come back at 10 o'clock. What's that? Then we'd be going home.